the story of going from Rayagada in Odisha, which is where I grew up in, to building OYO, and I feel I'm still building it because it's still the early days here, I think is a combination of three things. And I believe that hopefully these are the three things that will resonate with a lot of young entrepreneurs starting to build their own businesses. I think the first one is the story of dreams, which is being able to think about big aspirations without limitation. So growing up in Rayagada, I think being able to get an IT job was really like the top aspiration, right? One would aspire to have. But I think in the new India that we live in, access to internet structurally changes aspirations of people, right? Because now suddenly you read about another entrepreneur in another part of the world who just had a good idea, wanted to work hard and make a positive difference and could build a big business. So I thought, why not me? I think that was the first one, dreaming. The second thing was exposure. I think there were a lot of new businesses that were getting built around me which were prepared for the next generation. So like you mentioned, I started selling SIM cards. I started selling SIM cards for Airtel, which was, and I hear Mr. Mittal's here as well between today and tomorrow. I saw that there was a new company which was operating in a very different way and was still able to make a big difference. Exposure of the internet, to be able to see that businesses can be built on top of that. For example, if OYO had to distribute through physical shops, we would have taken 30 years to build a distribution network. Now we can just put ourselves on a mobile app and be ready to sell. So I would say dreaming, exposure, and I would say ecosystem, right? I think ecosystem का बहुत बड़ा बदलाव है. I think at the time when I was starting, there were people from US, from different parts of the world wanting to come join young startups. Our first hotel owner, Mr. Yadav, I remember, I tried to convince him कि आप OYO में जुड़ जाएं हमारे साथ में. So he says, देखिए, my occupancy is 15-20%. So it will not go worse than this. So I will give you a go. But you are telling me that you'll take the occupancy to 40-50%. Looking at you doesn't look like it'll happen. But I'll still give you a go. That ability to trust someone and say that I'm going to give them a go, I think is a big deal. So I think that dreaming, having exposure and being able to have the ecosystem around you, where India has changed from being a place where a government job is the only, I must not say that that's not aspirational today, it's still very aspirational. But at the same time, there are other aspirational jobs as well. And one of them is working with a startup, and I'm very lucky to be a part of this India. What I learned from COVID was three things. The first is the power of resilience. I have always believed for an entrepreneur, you have to keep digging when you're inside a tunnel. My father works now for a road construction company, so that's why I hear about these stories. So when you're in a tunnel and inside and you're digging, at some point of time you may feel that it's darkness all through, right? But you have to keep digging and there is always light at the end of the tunnel. So I think in the time of COVID, there was always this feeling saying that, why is it happening just to us, right? Like, why is this, like, when will this go away? Even though you knew that someday it will change, vaccines will come, life will be good, but there's always this thing of saying, by when will it go away? I think we had this conviction of saying that, hoga kabhi na kabhi, people will travel again. That's happening today, thank God. That was one. This power of perseverance is unprecedented, and I say this to every entrepreneur who's hopefully listening to us here. That is, you may be building your business and you may be losing your most important colleague. You may be running a business and you may be losing your best customer. You may be having an investor who's saying that if you don't make returns in a few months, I'm going to be unhappy. You should know that if you keep going at it, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. So that's one thing I learned. The second thing I learned is the power of having a team which truly works like a family. I didn't have my senior leaders leave me in the time of the pandemic, and if at all, we all got closer. And in that, one of the things that helped me was the power of reflection. I have learned that experiences, people say, is very valuable, right? Experience का बहुत महत्व होता है, आपने इतने साल देखा है. I think I will say a provocative statement, तो पूरा सुनना आप. Experiences, in my view, are not as valuable as much as reflections of those experiences are. What it means is, if you have experience on something and you don't do anything about it, then it's of no value. But if you have the experience and you can reflect on it and say, what can I do better by using that, that's very valuable. So that's what we did as a management. We spent a lot of time reflecting कि हमने क्या अच्छा किया, क्या हम बेहतर कर सकते थे, and then worked on improving it. What else? I think the third thing is, something that we were talking about is the power of, companies which work with small businesses and companies which are systemic to the Indian society, right? Like, you may think that COVID में कौन travel कर रहा था? Reality is a lot of OYO hotels were full in Mumbai at that point of time. Of course, we were not making any money on them. We were selling them very cheap because that was the right thing to do. Because we were one of the biggest providers for Vande Bharat mission. We were one of the biggest COVID center extensions for hospitals. So I was very lucky that our company could do its bit. So I think that's my big takeaway from COVID. I will take it maybe 3 steps back. The most important bit is to say that, India is a country of entrepreneurs, right? If you see around ourselves, we see a kirana shop, an automobile repair shop, a hardware shop. This is what at least like all of us have grown up with. If you grew up in a middle income family, you'd see all this dukaan nearby your house, and you would effectively आपका रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी इसी से चलती है. I think my belief has been, at least I as an entrepreneur believe, that for companies in India, there are 2 choices of building businesses. Either you can work with these small businesses, make them successful and in the process become successful yourself, or try to compete with them. I believe that the latter is a very bad idea. The reason for that is people who are inherently entrepreneurial, आप उनके साथ काम करेंगे तो by design, और they're all successful entrepreneurs. हमने तो जब शुरुआत करा था, we were not successful. They were all successful. So you're always the average of 5 people around you. So if I surround myself with 10,000 successful entrepreneurs, there is a high probability that I'd be successful. So I think small businesses have been systemic to our country, and companies which make small businesses systemic to them will be successful, is my view, and that's why OYO is very deeply connected to the power of small businesses in India. Now, small businesses ecosystem, there is a big shift happening. The big shift is of digitization and technology. I believe that fundamentally technology here is to make a significant positive difference for communities around ourselves. Now within this, it's very critical to use technology the right way, right? Like there is sometimes you may see technology as a challenge or by fear, but the other is to embrace it. And I believe that small businesses or businesses who are already successful actually have a head start over other digital companies to be more digital. When there is a storm in the sea, the fishermen prepare their net to be able to go back fishing whenever the sea is nicer, right? Calmer waters. So I think last 2 years was like storm for our businesses. So we now are preparing to go back fishing, but last 2 years we did knit our nets right. First is be fearless. It's okay to fail. There is risk in everything, right? I was thinking that, if I get a job, I can still be removed if I don't do a good job. So there is risk in even doing a job. So if there is a risk in doing a job, so I will just do what I'm good at. So if I feel I'm good at entrepreneurship, maybe I will just do that. So I think, being fearless, surrounding yourself with good people, and most importantly, being perseverant. Don't give up too early. I think these are my personal learnings, but that's it. I'll say that I'm myself learning. I continue to do, make sometimes good decisions, sometimes, learnings. But, I think that's what I would say to the new entrepreneur. I'll tell you this. Like, आप अगर किसी भी entrepreneur से आजकल मिले, marginal new entrepreneurs becoming successful, there is more than 50% probability that that kid comes from a town whose name you don't know. Like, you would not have heard about Raigada before you met me. I can tell you this, that आप जितने लोगों से मिलेंगे वो ऐसे जगह से आते हैं जब उन शहरों का नाम नहीं सुने. So that's the new change I'm seeing from the small town India that's coming here.